What is the prime meridian?
The north-south lines on a map run from the North Pole to the South Pole and are called meridians. The word meridian means noon, when it is noon on one place on the line. It is noon at any other point as well. The lines are used to measure longitudes, or how far east or west a particular place might be. And they are 69 miles, 111 kilometers, apart at the equator. The east-west lines are called parallels, and, unlike meridians, are all parallel to each other. They measure latitude, or how far north or south a particular place might be. There are 180 lines circling the Earth, one for each degree of latitude. The degrees of both latitude and longitude are divided into 60 minutes, which are then further divided into 60 seconds each. The prime meridian is the meridian of 0 degrees longitude, used as the origin for measurement of longitude. The meridian of Greenwich, England, is used almost universally for this purpose.
What are the components of a computer?
Computers have two major components, the hardware and the software. Hardware consists of all the physical devices needed to actually build and operate a computer. Examples of computer hardware are the Central Processing Unit, CPU, hard drive, memory, modems, and external devices such as the keyboard, monitor, printers, scanners, and other devices that can be physically touched. Software is an integral part of a computer and consists of the various computer programs that allow the user to interact with it and specify the tasks the computer performs. Without software, a computer is merely a collection of circuits and metal in a box unable to perform even the most basic functions.
How many nuclear power plants are there worldwide?
As of 2008, 440 reactors were operational with 44 more under construction. As of 2008, the United States had 104 reactors in operation, with one under construction. The plants generated 100,683 megawatts of electricity or 19.7% of domestic electricity in 2008.
What is loco weed?
The leguminous loco weeds or milk vetches, genera Astragalus and Oxytropes, have been a severe problem for ranchers in the western half of the United States and are considered to be some of the most toxic plants for horses, sheep, goats, and cattle. Loco is the Spanish word for crazy and refers to the staggering and trembling behavior of poisoned animals who walk into things and react to unseen objects. The poisonous compounds are an unusual group of alkaloids that affect certain Cells of the central nervous system, explaining the behavioral changes observed.
What is Harkin's rule?
Atoms having even atomic numbers are more abundant in the universe than are atoms having odd atomic numbers. Chemical properties of an element are determined by its atomic number, which is the number of protons in the atom's nucleus.
What is the largest invertebrate?
The largest invertebrate is the giant squid, Archaeoteuthis dux, which averages 30 to 53 feet, 9 to 16 meters, in length including its tentacles. It may reach a length of 69 feet, 21 meters. These animals have the largest eyes, up to 10 inches, 25 centimeters, in diameter, in the animal kingdom. It is believed that they generally live on or near the ocean bottom at a depth of 3,281 feet. 1,000 meters, or slightly more than a half-mile below the surface of the sea. Standard reference work throughout Europe in the 16th and 17th centuries.
How were early macadam roads different from modern paved roads?
Macadam roads developed originally in England and France and are named after the Scottish road builder and engineer John Loudon MacAdam, 1756 to 1836. The term macadam originally designated road surface or base in which clean, broken, or crushed ledge stone was mechanically locked together by rolling with a heavy weight and bonded together by stone dust screenings that were worked into the spaces and then set with water. With the beginning of the use of bituminous material, tar or asphalt, the terms plain macadam, ordinary macadam, or water-bound macadam were used to distinguish the original type from the newer bituminous macadam. Water-bound macadam surfaces are almost never built now in the United States, mainly because they are expensive and the vacuum effect of vehicles loosens them. Many miles of bituminous macadam roads are still in service, but their principal disadvantages are their high crowns and narrowness. Today's roads that carry very heavy traffic are usually surfaced with very durable Portland cement.
What substance, other than water, is less dense as a solid than as a liquid?
Only bismuth and water share this characteristic. Density, the mass per unit volume or mass/volume, refers to how compact or crowded a substance is. For instance, the density of water is 1 g/cm3, gram per cubic centimeter, or 1 kg/L, kilogram per liter. The density of a rock is 3.3 g/cm3, pure iron is 7.9 g/cm3, and Earth, as a whole, is 5.5 g/cm3, Average. Water as a solid, i.e., ice, floats.
Do tornadoes in the northern and southern hemispheres rotate in the same direction?
In general, tornadoes in the northern hemisphere rotate counterclockwise, cyclonically, while those in the southern hemisphere rotate clockwise, anticyclonically. Occasionally, anticyclonic tornadoes have been observed in the northern hemisphere. Typically, anticyclonic tornadoes in the northern hemisphere are weaker. Twisters associated with weak storm cells or sometimes appearing as waterspouts. In 1998, a tornado spinning anticyclonically was observed near Sunnyvale, California. Rarer, but still possible, is a supercell, which generates both cyclonic and anticyclonic tornadoes.
What are the differences between prokaryotic and eukaryotic cells?
Eukaryotic cells are much more complex than prokaryotic cells. Having compartmentalized interiors and membrane-bound organelles within their cytoplasm. The major feature of a eukaryotic cell is its membrane-bound nucleus, which compartmentalizes the activities of the genetic information from other types of cellular metabolism.
How did a total solar eclipse confirm Einstein's theory of general relativity?
When formulating his theory of general relativity, Albert Einstein proposed that the curvature of space near a massive object like the Sun would bend light that passed close by. For example, a star seen near the edge of the Sun during an eclipse would appear to have shifted by 1.75 arcseconds from its usual place. The British astronomer Arthur Eddington, 1882–1944, confirmed Einstein's hypothesis during an eclipse on May 29, 1919. The subsequent attention given to Eddington's findings helped establish Einstein's reputation as one of science's greatest figures.
What is the only four-horned animal in the world?
The four-horned antelope, Tetracerus quadricornis, is a native of central India. The males have two short horns, usually 4 inches, 10 centimeters, in length, between their ears, and an even shorter pair, 1 to 2 inches, 2.5 to 5 centimeters, long, between the brow ridges over their eyes. Not all males have 4 horns, and in some the second pair eventually falls off. The females have no horns at all.
How are warts caused?
A wart is a lump on the skin produced when one of the 30 types of Papillomavirus invades skin cells and causes them to multiply rapidly. There are several different types of warts: common warts, usually on injury sites, flat warts on hands, accompanied by itching, digitate warts having finger-like projections, filiform warts on eyelids, armpits, and necks, plantar warts on the soles of the feet, and genital warts. Pink cauliflower-like areas that, if occurring in a woman's cervix, could predispose her to cervical cancer. Each is produced by a specific virus, and most are usually symptomless. Wart viruses are spread by touch or by contact with the skin shed from a wart.
What is the rarest breed of dog?
The Tahltan bear dog, of which only a few remain, is thought to be the rarest dog. In danger of extinction, this breed was once used by the Tahltan Indians of Western Canada to hunt bear, lynx, and porcupine.
What is the difference between cubic zirconium and diamonds?
Cubic zirconium is a gemstone material that is an imitation of diamonds. The word imitation is key. The U.S. Federal Trade Commission defines imitation materials as resembling the natural material in appearance only. Cubic zirconium may be cut the same way as diamonds. It is very dense and solid, weighing 1.7 times more than a diamond of the same millimeter size.
Why is the first cervical vertebra, C1, called the atlas?
The first cervical vertebra is called the atlas after the Greek god Atlas, who was condemned to carry the earth and heavens on his shoulders. This vertebra has a ring-like structure with a large central opening and supports the head.
What is the toxic release inventory, TRI?
TRI is a government-mandated, publicly available compilation of information on the release of nearly 650 individual toxic chemicals and toxic chemical categories by manufacturing facilities in the United States. The law requires manufacturers to state the amounts of chemicals they release directly to air, land, or water, or that they transfer to off-site facilities that treat or dispose of wastes. The U.S. Environmental Protection Agency compiles these reports into an annual inventory and makes the information available in a computerized database. In 2008, 21,695 facilities released 3.9 billion pounds, 1.8 billion kilograms, of toxic chemicals into the environment. The total surface water discharges amounted to 246,321,372 pounds, 111,729,495 kilograms. while 1,144,615,081 pounds, 519,188,667 kilograms, were emitted into the air. 1,786,070,607 pounds, 810,148,000 kilograms, were released on site to land. And 196,339,106 pounds, 89,057,920 kilograms, were injected into underground wells. The total amount of toxic chemicals released in 2008 was 6%. 257 million pounds, 116.5 million kilograms, lower than the amount released in 2007.
Which trees are members of the rose family, Rosaceae?
The apple, pear, peach, cherry, plum, mountain ash, and hawthorn trees are members of the Rosaceae family.
How are hurricanes classified?
The Saffir/Simpson hurricane damage potential scale assigns numbers 1 through 5 to measure the disaster potential of a hurricane's winds and its accompanying storm surge. The purpose of the scale, developed in 1971 by Herbert Saffir, 1917 to 2007, and Robert Simpson, 1912. Is to help disaster agencies gauge the potential significance of these storms in terms of assistance. Minimal, no real damage to building structures. Some tree, shrubbery, and mobile home damage. Coastal road flooding and minor pier damage. Moderate, some roof, window, and door damage. Considerable damage to vegetation, mobile homes, and piers. Coastal and low-lying escape routes flood 2 to 4 hours before center of storm arrives. Small craft can break moorings in unprotected areas. Extensive, some structural damage to small or residential buildings. Mobile homes destroyed. Flooding near coast destroys structures and floods of homes 5 feet. 1.5 meters, above sea level as far inland as 6 miles, 9.5 kilometers. Extreme, extensive roof, window, and door damage. Major damage to lower floors of structures near the shore. And some roof failure on small residences. Complete beach erosion. Flooding of terrain 10 feet, 3 meters. Above sea level as far as 6 miles, 9.5 kilometers, inland, requiring massive residential evacuation. Catastrophic, complete roof failure to many buildings. Some complete building failure, with small utility buildings blown away. Major damage to lower floors of all structures 19 feet, 5.75 meters. Above sea level located within 500 yards, 547 meters, of the shoreline. Massive evacuation of residential areas on low ground 5 to 10 miles. 8 to 16 kilometers, from shoreline may be required.
Can meningitis be prevented?
The introduction and widespread use of Haemophilus influenza type B and Streptococcus pneumoniae. Conjugated vaccines has dramatically reduced the incidence of meningitis caused by these bacteria. In 2005, the Centers for Disease Control recommended routine vaccination of adolescents and college freshmen with the new meningococcal vaccine, which prevents 4 types of meningococcal disease caused by the bacteria Neisseria meningitidis.
How is a heating degree day defined?
Early in the 21st century, engineers developed the concept of heating degree days as a useful index of heating fuel requirements. They found that when the daily mean temperature is lower than 65 degrees Fahrenheit, 18 degrees Celsius, most buildings require heat to maintain a 70 degrees Fahrenheit 21 degrees Celsius temperature. Each degree of mean temperature below 65 degrees Fahrenheit 18 degrees Celsius is counted as one heating degree day. For every additional heating degree day, more fuel is needed to maintain a 70 degrees Fahrenheit 21 degrees Celsius indoor temperature. For example, a day with a mean temperature of 35 degrees Fahrenheit 1.5 degrees Celsius would be rated as 30 heating degree days and would require twice as much fuel as a day with a mean temperature of 50 degrees Fahrenheit, 10 degrees Celsius, 15 heating degree days. The heating degree concept has become a valuable tool for fuel companies for evaluation of fuel use rates and efficient scheduling of deliveries. Detailed daily, monthly, and seasonal totals are routinely computed for the stations of the National Weather Service.
When were bacteria discovered?
Anton van Leeuwenhoek, 1632–1723, a Dutch fabric merchant and civil servant, discovered bacteria and other microorganisms in 1674 when he looked at a drop of pond water through a glass lens. Early, single-lens instruments produced magnifications of 50 to 300 times real size. Approximately one-third of the magnification produced by modern light microscopes. Primitive microscopes provided a perspective into the previously unknown world of small organisms, which von Leeuwenhoek called animalcules in a letter he wrote to the Royal Society of London. Because of these early investigations, von Leeuwenhoek is considered to be the father of microbiology.
Why are horsetails called scouring rushes?
The epidermal tissue of horsetails contains abrasive particles of silica. Scouring rushes were used by Native Americans to polish bows and arrows. Early North American settlers, who cleaned their pots and pans along stream banks, Used horsetails found in abundance in such areas to scrub out their dishes.
How much salt is in brackish water?
Brackish water has a saline, salt, content between that of fresh water and sea water. It is neither fresh nor salty, but somewhere in between. Brackish waters are usually regarded as those containing 0.5 to 30 parts per thousand salt, while the average saltiness of seawater is 35 parts per thousand.
How is it determined that a species is endangered?
This determination is a complex process that has no set of fixed criteria that can be applied consistently to all species. The known number of living members in a species is not the sole factor. A species with 1 million members known to be alive but living in only one small area could be considered endangered, whereas another species having a smaller number of members, but spread out in a broad area, would not be considered so threatened. Reproduction data: the frequency of reproduction, the average number of offspring born, the survival rate, etc. enter into such determinations. In the United States, the Director of the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service, within the Department of the Interior, determines which species are to be considered endangered. Based on research and field data from specialists, biologists, botanists, and naturalists. According to the Endangered Species Act of 1973, a species can be listed if it is threatened by any of the following: the present or threatened destruction, modification, or curtailment of its habitat or range, utilization for commercial, sporting, scientific, or educational purposes at levels that detrimentally affect it, disease or predation, absence of regulatory mechanisms adequate to prevent the decline of a species or degradation of its habitat, other natural or man-made factors affecting its continued existence. If the species is so threatened, the director then determines the critical habitat, which is the species inhabitation areas that contain the essential physical or biological features necessary for the species preservation. The critical habitat can include non-habitation areas, which are deemed necessary for the protection of the species.
Where are the world's highest tides?
The Bay of Fundy, New Brunswick, Canada, has the world's highest tides. They average about 45 feet, 14 meters, high in the northern part of the bay, far surpassing the world average of 2.5 feet, 0.8 meter. The shape and size of the bay, as well as the increasing up bay shallowness, cause these very high tides.
What is the difference between science and technology?
Science and technology are related disciplines, but have different goals. The basic goal of science is to acquire a fundamental knowledge of the natural world. Outcomes of scientific research are the theorems, laws, and equations that explain the natural world. It is often described as a pure science. Technology is the quest to solve problems in the natural world with the ultimate goal of improving humankind's control of their environment. Technology is, therefore, often described as applied science, applying the laws of science to specific problems. The distinction between science and technology blurs since many times researchers investigating a scientific problem will discover a practical application for the knowledge they acquire.
How does the Energy Star program promote energy efficiency?
Energy Star is a dynamic government/industry partnership that offers businesses and consumers energy-efficient solutions, making it easy to save money while protecting the environment for future generations. In 1992, the U.S. Environmental Protection Agency, EPA, introduced Energy Star as a voluntary labeling program designed to identify and promote energy-efficient products to reduce greenhouse gas emissions. Computers and monitors were the first labeled products. The Energy Star label is now on major appliances, office equipment, lighting, consumer electronics, and more. The EPA has also extended the label to cover new homes and commercial and industrial buildings. Through its partnerships with more than 7,000 private and public sector organizations, Energy Star delivers the technical information and tools that organizations and consumers need to choose energy-efficient solutions and best management practices. Energy Star has successfully delivered energy and cost savings across the country, saving businesses, organizations, and consumers more than $5 billion a year. Energy Star has been instrumental in promoting the widespread use of such technological innovations as LED traffic lights, efficient fluorescent lighting, power management systems for office equipment, and low standby energy use.
Which fungus may have played a role in the Salem witch trials?
The Salem witch hunts of 1692 may have initially been caused by an infestation of a microbiological poison. The fungus, Claviceps purpurea, commonly known as rice mud, produces the poison ergot. When ingested, this poison produces symptoms similar to the ones observed in the girls accused of being witches in Salem in 1692. Historians and biologists have reviewed environmental conditions in New England from 1690 to 1692 and have found that conditions were perfect for an occurrence of rice mud overgrowth. The weather conditions during those years were particularly wet and cool. Ryegrass had replaced wheat as the principal grain because wheat had become seriously infected with wheat rust during long periods of cold and damp weather. The symptoms of ergot poisoning include convulsions, pinching or biting sensations, stomach ailments as well as temporary blindness, deafness, and muteness.
Who is generally regarded as the father of medicine?
Hippocrates, c. 460 c. 377 BCE, a Greek physician, holds this honor. Greek medicine, previous to Hippocrates, was a mixture of religion, mysticism, and necromancy. Hippocrates established the rational system of medicine as a science, separating it from religion and philosophy. Diseases had natural causes and natural laws, they were not the wrath of the gods. Hippocrates believed that the four elements, earth, air, fire, and water, were represented in the body by four body fluids: blood, phlegm, black bile, and yellow bile, or humors. When they existed in harmony within the body was in good health. The duty of the physician was to help nature to restore the body's harmony. Diet, exercise, and moderation in all things kept the body well, and psychological healing. Good attitude toward recovery, bed rest, and quiet were part of his therapy. Hippocrates was the first to recognize that different diseases had different symptoms, and he described them in such detail that the descriptions generally would hold today. His descriptions not only included diagnosis but prognosis.
What are the four major cloud groups and their types?
High clouds composed almost entirely of ice crystals. The bases of these clouds start at 20,000 feet, 6,096 meters, and reach 40,000 feet, 12,192 meters. Cirrus, from Latin, lock of hair, thin, feather-like crystal clouds in patches or narrow bands. The large ice crystals that often trail downward in well-defined wisps are called Marae's tails. Cirrostratus, thin, white cloud layer that resembles a veil or sheet. This layer can be striated or fibrous. Because of the ice content, these clouds are associated with the halos that surround the sun or moon. Cirrocumulus, thin clouds that appear as small white flakes or cotton patches and may contain supercooled water. Middle clouds composed primarily of water. The height of the cloud bases range from 6,500 to 20,000 feet, 2,000 to 6,096 meters. Altostratus appears as a bluish or grayish veil or layer of clouds that can gradually merge into altocumulus clouds. The sun may be dimly visible through it, but flat, thick sheets of this cloud type can obscure the sun. Altocumulus, a white or gray layer or patches of solid clouds with rounded shapes. Low clouds composed almost entirely of water that may at times be supercooled. At subfreezing temperatures, snow and ice crystals may be present as well. The bases of these clouds start near Earth's surface and climb to 6,500 feet. 2,000 meters, in the middle latitudes. Stratus gray, uniform, sheet-like clouds with a relatively low base. Or they can be patchy, shapeless, low gray clouds. Thin enough for the sun to shine through, these clouds bring drizzle and snow. Stratocumulus globular rounded masses that form at the top of the layer. Nimbostrata seen as a gray or dark, relatively shapeless. Massive cloud layer containing rain, snow, and ice pellets. Clouds with vertical development contain supercooled water above the freezing level and grow to great heights. The cloud bases range from 1,600 feet, 488 meters, to 20,000 feet, 6,096 meters. Cumulus detached, fair weather clouds with relatively flat bases and dome-shaped tops. These usually do not have extensive vertical development and do not produce precipitation. Cumulonimbus unstable, large. Vertical clouds with dense boiling tops that bring showers, hail, thunder, and lightning.
What is a tektite?
Tektites are silica-rich glass objects, rocks, found scattered in selected regions of Earth's surface. They are generally black, oblong, teardrop, or dumbbell-shaped, and several centimeters in length. They are formed from molten rock resulting when a meteorite, asteroid, or comet fragment impacts Earth's surface. The molten rock is hurled high into the atmosphere, where it rapidly cools into its unique shape and physical characteristics. Their mode of formation is considered indisputable evidence of such impacts. Tektites range from 0.7 to 35 million years in age.
Why is blood sticky?
Blood is sticky because it is denser than water and about 5 times more viscous than water. Blood is viscous mainly due to the red blood cells. When the number of these cells increases, the blood becomes thicker and flows slower. Conversely, if the number of red blood cells decreases, blood thins and flows faster.
What is the chemical formula for TNT?
TNT is the abbreviation for 2,4,6-trinitrotoluene C7H5N3O6 or C6H2, CH3, NO2, 3. TNT is a powerful, highly explosive compound widely used in conventional bombs. Discovered by Joseph Wilbrand, 1811 to 1894, in 1863. It is made by treating toluene with nitric acid and sulfuric acid. This yellow crystalline solid with a low melting point has low shock sensitivity and even burns without exploding. This makes it safe to handle and cast, but once detonated, it explodes violently.
How are birds related to dinosaurs?
Birds are essentially modified dinosaurs with feathers. Robert T. Bakker, 1945, and John H. Ostrom, 1928 to 2005, did extensive research on the relationship between birds and dinosaurs in the 1970s and concluded that the bony structure of small dinosaurs was very similar to Archaeopteryx, the first animal classified as a bird, but that dinosaur fossils showed no evidence of feathers. They proposed that birds and dinosaurs evolved from the same source.
How many bones are in the human body?
Babies are born with about 300 to 350 bones, but many of these fuse together between birth and maturity to produce an average adult total of 206. Bone counts vary according to the method used to count them. Because a structure may be treated as either multiple bones or as a single bone with multiple parts.
What is diatomite?
Diatomite, also called diatomaceous earth, is a white or cream-colored, friable, porous rock composed of the fossil remains of diatoms, small water plants with silica cell walls. These fossils build up on the ocean bottoms to form diatomite. And in some places these areas have become dry land or diatomaceous earth. Chemically inert and having a rough texture and other unusual physical properties. It is suitable for many scientific and industrial purposes, including use as a filtering agent, building material, heat, cold, and sound insulator, catalyst carrier, filler absorbent, abrasive, and ingredient in pharmaceutical preparations. Dynamite is made from it by soaking it in the liquid explosive nitroglycerin.
What is the purpose of primary teeth?
Primary teeth, also known as baby, deciduous, temporary, or milk. For their milk-white color, teeth serve many of the same purposes as permanent teeth. They are needed for chewing and they are necessary for speech development. They also prepare the mouth for the permanent teeth by maintaining space for the permanent teeth to emerge in proper alignment. Each individual has 20 primary teeth followed by 32 permanent teeth.
How is the age of a dog or cat computed in human years?
When a cat is 1 year old, it is about 20 years old in human years. Each additional year is multiplied by 4. Another source counts the age of a cat slightly differently. At age 1, a cat's age equals 16 human years. At age 2, a cat's age is 24 human years. Each additional year is multiplied by 4. When a dog is 1 year old, it is about 15 years old in human years. At age 2 it is about 24, after age 2, each additional year is multiplied by 4.
How much has recycling of municipal solid waste grown since 1960?
In 1960 the recycling rate was 6.4%. It has grown to 33.2% in 2008. On average, Americans recycled and composted 1.5 pounds, 0.7 kilograms, of our individual waste generation of 4.5 pounds, 2 kilograms, per person per day.
Who first used fingerprints as a means of identification?
It is generally acknowledged that Francis Galton, 1822 to 1911, was the first to classify fingerprints. However, his basic ideas were further developed by Sir Edward Henry, 1850 to 1931, who devised a system based on the pattern of the thumbprint. In 1901 in England, Henry established the first fingerprint bureau with Scotland Yard called the Fingerprint Branch.
What are Roman numerals?
Roman numerals are symbols that stand for numbers. They are written using 7 basic symbols: I, 1, V, 5, X, 10, L, 50, C, 100, D, 500, and M, 1000. Sometimes a bar is placed over a numeral to multiply it by 1. 000. A smaller numeral appearing before a larger numeral indicates that the smaller numeral is subtracted from the larger one. This notation is generally used for 4 seconds and nines. For example, 4 is written 4, 9 is 9, 40 is XL, and 90 is XC.
What is the most commonly used renewable energy source?
Hydroelectric power is the most common renewable energy source. Based on consumption, hydroelectric power accounts for 34% of the total amount of renewable energy resources. The capacity for hydroelectric power is about 95,000 megawatts. Hydropower facilities in the United States can generate enough power to supply 28 million households, or the equivalent of nearly 500 million barrels of oil. In 2008 it accounted for 6% of total electricity. Generation and 67% of generation from renewables.
What are the common mathematical formulas for area?
Area of a rectangle, area equals length times width A equals LW. Area equals altitude times base A equals of area of a circle. Area equals pi times the radius squared. A equals tier 2 or A equals 1/4 TID2. Area of a triangle. Area equals 1/2 the altitude times the base. A equals 1/2 of area of the surface of a sphere. Area equals 4 times pi times the radius squared. A equals 4 tier 2 or A equals TID2. Area of a square, area equals length times width, or length of one side squared. A equals S23. Area of a cube, area equals square of the length of one side times 6. A equals 6S2. Area of an ellipse, area equals long diameter times short diameter times 0.7854. Volume of a cylinder, volume equals area of the base times the height. V equals BH. Volume of a circular cylinder with circular base, volume equals pi times the square of the radius of the base times the height. V equals tier 2 H. Volume of a cube, volume equals the length of one side cubed. V equals S3. Volume of a cone, volume equals 1/3 times pi times the square of the radius of the base times the height. V equals 1/3 tier 2 H. Volume of a rectangular solid, volume equals length times width times height. V equals LWH.
What and where is the continental divide of North America?
The Continental Divide, also known as the Great Divide, is a continuous ridge of peaks in the Rocky Mountains that marks the watershed separating easterly flowing waters from westerly flowing waters in North America. To the east of the Continental Divide, water drains into Hudson Bay or the Mississippi River before reaching the Atlantic Ocean. To the west, water generally flows through the Columbia River or the Colorado River on its way to the Pacific Ocean.
How does the volume of the stomach change from when it is empty to when it is full?
The inner mucous membrane of the stomach contains branching wrinkles called rugae. From the Latin, meaning folds. As the stomach fills, the rugae flatten until they almost disappear when the stomach is full. An empty stomach has a volume of only 0.05 quarts, 50 milliliters. A full stomach expands to contain 1 to 1.5 quarts. A little less than 1 to 1.5 liters, of food in the process of being digested.
Who was the founder of modern medicine?
Thomas Sydenham, 1624 to 1689, who was also called the English Hippocrates, reintroduced the Hippocratic method of accurate observation at the bedside, and recording of observations. to build up a general clinical description of individual diseases. He is also considered one of the founders of epidemiology and was among the first to describe scarlet fever and Sydenham's chorea.
What are the major groups of mollusks?
There are four major groups of mollusks: 1. Chitons, 2. Gastropods, which include snails, slugs, and nudibranchs; 3. Bivalves, which include clams, oysters, and mussels; and 4. Cephalopods, which include squids and octopods. Although mollusks vary widely in external appearance, most share the following body plan: 1. A muscular foot, usually used for movement; 2. A visceral mass containing most of the internal organs; and 3. A mantle fold of tissue that drapes over the visceral mass and secretes a shell, in organisms that have a shell.
How is a DNA molecule held together?
Although DNA is held together by several different kinds of chemical interactions, it is still a rather fragile molecule. The nitrogen bases that constitute the rungs of the ladder are held together by hydrogen bonds. The sides of the ladder, the phosphate and deoxyribose molecules, are held together by a type of covalent bond called a phosphodiester bond. Because part of the DNA molecule is polar, the outside of the ladder, and the rungs, nitrogen bases, are nonpolar, there are other interactions called hydrostatic interactions that occur between the hydrogen and oxygen atoms of DNA and water. The internal part of the DNA tends to repel water, while the external sugar phosphate molecules tend to attract water. This creates a kind of molecular pressure that glues the helix together.
What is the oldest continuously published scientific journal?
The Philosophical Transactions of the Royal Society of London. First published a few months after the first issue of the journal des Savants. On March 6, 1665, is the oldest, continuously published scientific journal.
Did Charles Darwin have any nicknames?
Darwin had several nicknames. As a young naturalist on board the HMS Beagle, he was called Philos because of his intellectual pursuits and flycatcher when his shipmates tired of him filling the ship with his collections. Later in his life, when he became a leader in the scientific community, journalists referred to him as the Sage of Down or the Saint of Science. But his friend Thomas Henry Huxley privately called him the Tsar of Down and the Pope of Science. His own favorite nickname was Stultus the Fool. and he often signed letters to scientific friends with Stultus. This name referred to his habit of trying experiments most people would prejudge to be fruitless or fool's experiments.
What were the smallest and largest dinosaurs?
Compsognathus, a carnivore from the late Jurassic period, 131 million years ago, was about the size of a chicken and measured, at most, 35 inches, 89 centimeters, from the tip of its snout to the tip of its tail. The average weight was about 6 pounds 8 ounces, 3 kilograms. But they could be as much as 15 pounds, 6.8 kilograms. The largest species for which a whole skeleton is known is Brachiosaurus. A specimen in the Humboldt Museum in Berlin measures 72.75 feet, 22.2 meters, long and 46 feet, 14 meters, high. It weighed an estimated 34.7 tons, 31,480 kilograms. Brachiosaurus was a four-footed, plant-eating dinosaur with a long neck and a long tail and lived from about 121 to 155 million years ago.
How fast do eyelashes grow?
Eyelashes are replaced every 3 months. An individual will grow about 600 complete eyelashes in a lifetime.
How many constellations are there and how were they named?
Constellations are groups of stars that seem to form some particular shape, such as that of a person, animal, or object. They only appear to form this shape and be close to each other from Earth. In actuality, the stars in a constellation are often very distant from each other. There are 88 recognized constellations whose boundaries were defined in the 1920s by the International Astronomical Union. Various cultures in all parts of the world have had their own constellations. However, because modern science is predominantly a product of Western culture, many of the constellations represent characters from Greek and Roman mythology. When Europeans began to explore the southern hemisphere in the 16th and 17th centuries, they derived some of the new star patterns from the technological wonders of their time, such as the telescope. Names of constellations are usually given in Latin. Individual stars in a constellation are usually designated with Greek letters in the order of brightness. The brightest star is Alpha, the second brightest is Beta, and so on. The genitive, or possessive, form of the constellation name is used. Thus Alpha Orionis is the brightest star of the constellation Orion.
How is percent of increase calculated?
To find the percent of increase, divide the amount of increase by the base amount. Multiply the result by 100%. For example, a raise in salary from $10,000 to $12,000 would have percent of increase equals 2,000/10,000, x 100% equals 20%.
What determines eye color?
Variations in eye color range from light blue to dark brown and are inherited. Eye color is chiefly determined by the amount and distribution of melanin within the irises. If melanin is present only in the epithelial cells that cover the posterior surface of the iris appears blue. When this condition exists together with denser than usual tissue within the body of the iris, it looks gray. When melanin is present within the body of the iris, as well as the epithelial covering, the iris appears brown. Green and hazel eyes result from an increase in the amount of a combination of yellow and black melanin.
Which stars are the brightest?
The brightness of a star is called its magnitude. Apparent magnitude is how bright a star appears to the naked eye. The lower the magnitude, the brighter the star. On a clear night, stars of about magnitude 16 can be seen with the naked eye. Large telescopes can detect objects as faint as 127. Very bright objects have negative magnitudes. The Sun is -26.8.
What are the nitrogenous bases of DNA?
The nitrogenous bases have a ring of nitrogen and carbon atoms with various functional groups attached. There are two types of nitrogenous bases. They differ in their structure. Thymine and cytosine have a single ring structure, while adenine and guanine have double ring structures. When James Watson, 1928, and Francis Crick, 1916 to 2004, were imagining how the bases would join together, they knew that the pairing had to be such that there was always a uniform diameter for the molecule. It therefore became apparent that a double ring base must always be paired with a single ring base on the opposite strand.
What is a whiteout?
An official definition for whiteout does not exist. It is a colloquial term that can describe any condition during snowfall that severely restricts visibility. That may mean a blizzard, or snow squall, etc. If you get some sunlight in the mix, that makes the situation even worse. It's like driving in fog with your headlights on high beam. The light gets backscattered right into your eyes and you can't see.
Who was the first African American in space?
Guion S. Bluford Jr., 1942, became the first African American to fly in space during the Space Shuttle Challenger mission STS-8, August 30 to September 5, 1983. Astronaut Bluford, who holds a PhD in aerospace engineering, made a second shuttle flight aboard Challenger mission STS-61A/Spacelab D1, October 30 to November 6, 1985. The first black man to fly in space was Cuban cosmonaut Arnaldo Tamayo Mendez, who was aboard Soyuz 38 and spent 8 days aboard the Soviet space station Salyut 6 during September 1980. Dr. Macy Jemison became the first African American woman in space on September 12, 1992 aboard the Space Shuttle Endeavour mission Spacelab J.
What was Richard Feynman's contribution to physics?
Richard Feynman, 1918 to 1988, developed a theory of quantum electrodynamics that described the interaction of electrons, positrons, and photons, providing physicists a new way to work with electrons. He reconstructed quantum mechanics and electrodynamics in his own terms, formulating a matrix of measurable quantities visually represented by a series of graphs, known as the Feynman diagrams. Feynman was awarded the Nobel Prize in Physics in 1965.
What is eutrophication?
Eutrophication is a process in which the supply of plant nutrients in a lake or pond is increased. In time, the result of natural eutrophication may be dry land where water once flowed, caused by plant overgrowth. Natural fertilizers, washed from the soil, result in an accelerated growth of plants, producing overcrowding. As the plants die off, the dead and decaying vegetation depletes the lake's oxygen supply, causing fish to die. The accumulated dead plant and animal material eventually changes a deep lake to a shallow one, then to a swamp, and finally it becomes dry land. While the process of eutrophication is a natural one, it has been accelerated enormously by human activities. Fertilizers from farms, sewage, industrial wastes, and some detergents all contribute to the problem.
Do the continents move?
In 1912, a German geologist, Alfred Lothar Wegener, 1880 to 1930, theorized that the continents had drifted or floated apart to their present locations and that once all the continents had been a single land mass near Antarctica called Pangaea, from the Greek word meaning all earth. Pangaea then broke apart some 200 million years ago into two major continents called Laurasia and Gondwanaland. These two continents continued drifting and separating until the continents evolved into their present shapes and positions. Wegener's theory was discounted, but it has since been found that the continents do move sideways, not drift, at an estimated inch, 19 millimeters, annually because of the action of plate tectonics. American geologist William Maurice Ewing, 1906 to 1974, and Harry Hammond Hess, 1906 to 1969, proposed that Earth's crust is not a solid mass, but composed of 8 major and 7 minor plates that can move apart, slide by each other, collide, or override each other. Where these plates meet are major areas of mountain building, earthquakes, and volcanoes.
The 3 steps are: collection and processing of recyclable materials, use of recyclables by industry to manufacture new products, consumer purchase of products made from recycled materials. What is the Resource Conservation and Recovery Act?
In 1976, the U.S. Congress passed the Resource Conservation and Recovery Act, RCRA, which was amended in 1984 and 1986. This law requires the EPA to identify hazardous wastes and set standards for their management, including generation, transportation, treatment, storage, and disposal of hazardous waste. The law requires all firms that store, treat, or dispose of more than 220 pounds, 100 kilograms, of hazardous wastes per month to have a permit stating how such wastes are managed.